It's vivid, I'm living up in this nightmare. It's vivid, I'm living up in this nightmare. Bring it back, I'm stealing your joy. It's vivid, I'm living up in this nightmare. We're killing them after cuffing, it's quite fair. Democratic, Republican fight, yeah. I'm living up in this nightmare. Nightmare. It's vivid, I'm living up in this nightmare.
JGiddins
Nightmare. It's vivid, I'm living up in this nightmare. It's vivid, I'm living up in this nightmare. Killing citizens on live air. Big guns, militant eyes stare. The infantry that welcomes penitentiary lies here. And they sit in their wise chair and they like, I don't really care how it happened. All I know is that you're young and you're black, and the only thing that's gonna give your honor satisfaction is giving you these numbers so you slumber and you're trapped in this nightmare. What's up, guys? It is none other than your boy JGiddins, the father, coming to you live. I want to first off remind you guys to be positive, optimistic, and keep positive people in your circle, as those three things are key to ensuring that positivity is invited into your future. Hope you guys like that new intro I made. It's just sort of a collage of some videos with myself and the kids with my song Nightmare playing in the background. I'll make sure to put a description of that, or I'm sorry, a link of that in the description. The goal of today's video really is to just sort of have a broad, or sort of vague conversation as it relates to Donald Trump. He's very rarely mentioned in my previous videos. You guys don't hear me talk about him much. The goal really is to sort of encourage this conversation and this discussion between us. I think it's healthy for us, and I think it's just a necessity really for us to get past what he's putting our country through. Right. I first off want to say that I agree with Yang. I agree with Andrew Yang, and shout out to the Yang Gang, by the way. Sorry that took me so long. I agree with Andrew Yang as it relates to us feeding the bear, so to speak, by having a discussion about Donald Trump, because it offers publicity to him and sort of gives credibility in ways that we really just shouldn't even, care to do. I agree with Andrew Yang as he discusses the voters. His opinion of why Donald Trump got voters. One, automation, he always mentions as number one in terms of influencing the mindset behind people wanting to sort of vote for somebody who's not a politician, or just seeing jobs go away, seeing everything in the communities change, and seeing the same old politicians saying and doing the same things. It just sort of pushed people towards Donald Trump. So I do agree with him in that regard. I do think that there is a section of voters that vote for Donald Trump and always will, that we don't sort of address or talk about. And those are the racists, which I think some are passive and some are hardcore. The passive are more than likely made up of, maybe like white women, white stay-at-home moms that are more passive, and then the, also there can be people of power who are also passive racists. The House of Representatives has some senators, corporate donors and such, like they also have sort of a dormant passive racism about them. And I would use a metaphor to compare passive racism to, like, say, like a woman who's in an abusive relationship and not leaving the relationship that a man is beating her in. It's not because she necessarily is all for being beat. It's not because she thinks she deserves to be beat, but sometimes there's a psychological depth to why it's allowed. Same with the senators and House of Representatives and, the lobbyists and all of those categories of people who are passive racists because they allow procedures to be in place which support racism. Then you have hardcore racists, of course, which are those, all the way from white nationalists to white supremacists, and white nationalists just, of course, think that our nation, or that our nation as a whole should be white, or the white nation should be not diluted or deprived of any sort of relevance to just their race, and they feel like they should be kind of sectioned off and they want to be just themselves. That's my understanding of a white nationalist, and it's deeper than that, but this is a broad overview, right? White supremacists obviously just feel that the white race is superior to all other races, and typically want to just sort of alleviate the world of other races and just get rid of them, or at least have them somewhere completely out of this world, so to speak. I really feel like Donald Trump is sort of testing the fabric of our nation. I've actually heard that same phrase be used in Congress. He's testing the fabric of our nation. He's sort of not only dividing us, but forcing us to make a decision. Some people are very ignorant as it relates to race. They just pretend it doesn't exist. Or racism, they pretend that it doesn't happen. They say things like, I don't see color, when we all clearly have color, right? I feel like he's testing us. He's sort of making the United States make a choice. And, he's doing things to not only have us make a choice on a racial level, but on a democratic level. He's sort of going toward the realm of an autocracy. And I just feel like him doing things like ignoring subpoenas and just using executive privilege all willy-nilly. These kind of things are all just sort of, putting our loyalty to the test, and that brings us to impeachment. Impeachment is something, and that's a deep conversation to have, because it's sort of a double-edged sword. Nancy Pelosi, who, pisses me off just as much as she excites me. Her ideology behind not wanting to impeach previously, I sort of understand it, because you don't want to impeach him and then just have it fail in the Senate. But I also disagree with it, because it's not the right thing to do. It's one of the more inhumane things that you can do to allow him to go on with what he's doing. The metaphorical comparison that I would give is, a little, and I have 2 daughters, so that's why this is so touching and close to me. But imagine a young girl, or a little girl, who's being molested or touched by her stepfather, or it could be even father, and the mother is not doing anything about it. And her reasoning behind that is, well, nobody's gonna believe me, or well, they're just gonna let him go anyway, or he may get away with it. Like, the pain and psychological trauma that it causes that little girl to witness her mother not stand up for her will be traumatic, beyond the factors of him getting away with it, and I feel like our country is that little girl, metaphorically, and we're sort of watching him do these things, and nobody's doing anything about it. It's actually very scary, especially when you think about our history. I think about the fact that, and a lot of us neglect our history. We neglect the understanding of where we came from as a, as a society. There was a point in time where I would have been a slave simply because of the color of my skin, and me being a slave was backed by the country. It was backed by the government. It was supported. It took a civil war for that to change, or it took a revolution. It took a bunch of people to stand up and say what was right. And I think if everybody had the mindset that Nancy Pelosi has, I would still be enslaved, or we would at least still be completely segregated. I say completely because segregation does, to a certain degree, still occur and still exist. It's just in the form of, systemic racism and remnants of oppression, which can be further exposed or explained in my other videos that I would highly suggest that you guys check out. So again, the purpose of this video was sort of just to do a broad overview of my thoughts of Donald Trump, what he's doing to the country. I feel like the YangGang is sort of a response. If the country was a body and there was like antibodies that had an immune system, I feel like the YangGang or Andrew Yang's campaign is what was sort of created as that immune system, or from that immune system. And we're just sort of fighting back with humanity and understanding that we have to start putting people first, putting us being human before us being any race or of any, side or any political attribution. We just really need to understand that our country is being tested right now, and I'm really curious to know what you guys' thoughts are, whether or not you agree with some of the things that I say, whether you disagree, what your perspective on, the entire ordeal is, because I hear people say things of all sorts about them agreeing with Nancy Pelosi. They think impeaching is the wrong thing to do. I just, I don't know. That's my train of thought as it relates to that. Guys, make sure to leave any comments or questions that you have down in the comments section. I'll make sure to include in the description, again, a link to the song that you heard in the beginning in case you guys want to check that out. Please make sure to visit my Patreon at patreon.com/JGiddins to figure out how you can help me with making sure that this footage and my ideology can continue to be shared with you guys. I really do enjoy the time that I have with you and the communication that I have with you guys. Great people everywhere. Before I go, I want to remind you guys again to make sure to be positive, optimistic, and keep positive people in your circle, as those three things are key to making sure that positivity is invited in your future. Until next time, JGiddins out, baby.